Warning. This is not a safe space. Leave your bullshit and feelings at the door.
Betas will retreat, but alphas will stand their ground and protect. Today we talk about guns here in the Man Cave.
It's time for the most raw and unfiltered experience on the internet. So kick your feet up and grab a cold one. You have just entered the Man Cave. And now, here they are, winners of the self-proclaimed International Greatest Men Alive Award, Brad and Terry.
Hey, thanks for joining us here in the Man Cave. I'm Brad.
And I'm armed and dangerous.
Is that what you're changing your name to now?
Just for this episode.
All right. Armed and dangerous. Hey, make sure to check us out over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. But if you want that full, no bullshit experience and the ability to win prizes, you're going to have to subscribe to us over on Patreon. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
What are we drinking today, man?
I got the American Beauty made by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, brewed in Milton, Delaware.
I will say, I myself consider myself an American beauty. Just from head to toe.
And everywhere in between.
Everywhere in between. I am the epitome of American beauty.
You could have been on the movie cover.
Yeah.
You remember that movie?
No.
Oh, you got to look it up, right? I think it was like a kind of a lady spread out. It could have been you.
It could have.
You just would have had to tuck the boys in between.
Hey, maybe I just get them cut off. That's socially acceptable nowadays. But
oh wow,
yeah. So we're talking guns, and it's one of my favorite subjects because I love guns.
I do too. Unfortunately, when we moved to where we live now, because of how do we put this to be?
We live in California.
Fuck, man, it's terrible.
Yeah.
There was a lot of paperwork in order to become a importer of guns, and it just wasn't worth it.
Right.
So we don't plan on either one of us really staying here. We just kind of got you can say we got well-paying gigs to come out here.
Yeah.
And so then when we move, I left him with family and friends.
I left the majority of mine with my parents in Florida, but I did bring my 1911 with me. It's
we'll get into that too.
I don't want to say it's my favorite gun and offend the rest of my guns. I don't want them.
Would they be triggered?
What a pun! But it is definitely one of my favorites. I am a 1911 guy. I was converted. I was a 9mm guy for the longest time, but the 45 is the Lord's round. I am a firm believer in it. And the 1911 is by far the best vessel to fire a 45 from.
Yeah, so I pitched this to Terry. Or excuse me, what was your name for the episode?
Armed and Dangerous.
Yeah, so when I pitched the episode to Armed and Dangerous over there, he was down with it. And I think the reason that I pitched the episode to just kind of talk about guns was, looking at life, there's a few things that are great equalizers in life when you look at certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And a gun is the ultimate equalizer in any situation. And a perfect example that I would go into is when, let's say, the difference is between myself and my wife.
Yeah.
My wife is, it's like 6 inches shorter than me.
Yeah.
And I outweigh her by at least 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to be a complete raging dickhead any day of the week, I could thrash her around if I wanted to.
Yeah, if you wanted to be that toxic man,
the
one that Gillette portrays.
Yeah, I I do still make her smile every day, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah,
and she,
and she's got to look at the ground all the time, right?
Yeah, and especially when she opens my beer and brings it to me.
Yeah,
she got to stare at the floor.
Yeah,
and say yes, sir. But what would equalize the situation if I wanted to do that?
Oh, if she pulled a gun on you, you'd stop dead in your fucking tracks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you best believe one of the things that my wife has learned how to do over the years is shoot a gun. She knows how.
Yeah.
They've been in the house, and she knows how to use it. They, both of us have kind of a firearms background, and the guns in my house were kept locked, but when you needed to get them out, they're condition 3, and she knew what to do to put it in condition 1 and, handle business if she needed. But that is the best equalizer. And I just cannot understand, as a society who wants to protect women, why we would not just open up the fact that, why don't we just have, the more guns we can let women have, the less likely they're going to be taken advantage of. And I think that would kind of segue perfectly into a couple stories of personal experiences that you have had with the use of firearms.
So first I want to start with protecting women. Let's start on that, and women protecting themselves. Because there are dickheads out there. We've debunked a lot of shit about men being dickheads, but there are dickheads out there that are out to hurt people. And a woman's ability to protect themselves is definitely a great thing. And I remember I traveled overseas to Israel. And in Israel, a lot of the women walk around armed all the time. Like, they either have something in their purse. Some of them just open carry guns that you would be terrified to see on the streets here in America.
Yeah, I remember traveling through airports overseas, and I want to say I was, I think, 16 or so when I traveled through Germany. And through the years traveling through airports, I've seen the same thing. But I mean, straight up, that was my first time ever seeing the security guard was carrying an MP5.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was taken away from it, because usually the security in American airports are just carrying handguns. These guys were carrying that HK MP5 with them, and I was just taken away. But now, I mean, anybody, they carry assault rifles for protection in airports overseas.
Yeah, and they carry them out on the streets, and it's I mean, let's talk about. There's so much to talk about, but you use the term assault rifle, and I know that's just I mean, no fault. It's just kind of the term that's been coined. I would call my rifle an assault rifle's AR platform, but assault is an action. It's not.
And we're not dumb enough to say that we think AR stands for assault rifle, because we both know it doesn't.
Wait.
Terry,
no, I'm kidding. But yeah, so into personal story, a personal story that I have about how having a firearm pretty much saved a life. I've been over one of the stories previously where the person that lived in the apartment above me was being physically abused, actually getting the shit beat out of her. We'll put it that way, by her drug addict boyfriend. And it took me going up there with a shotgun to save her from possibly dying. And I've told that story. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just the fact that I had the firearm there is what solved the situation. But it was shortly after I moved here that I was sitting on my couch in my apartment, just got home from work, and I hear from down the hallway someone screaming, "Help, help." I'm like, oh, first thing came to my head was fuck, man, this shit followed me.
Right? Yeah, because before you lived in kind of a shady neighborhood.
Now I live
kind of be expected.
Yeah, I live in a real nice place now. I expected not to have anything like this happen. So I just to be safe, I go and I grab my gun, and I don't have it in my hand, and because I didn't know the situation, I didn't want to come out and make it worse by immediately presenting the gun. And I go out, and it's the weirdest series of events. There's this woman who is, I find out later, is my across-the-hall neighbor, and she's holding the elevator open, and there's a man in the elevator who's bleeding from his face. And she's holding the elevator open, but yelling at him to leave. So I'm very confused on what's going on, and I'm like, what's going on? I asked, what's going on? And she's like, he hit me. He tried to hurt me, right? And I'm like, I look at the guy. I'm like, okay, dude, you need to leave. and I grab her and I pull her away from the elevator because she's out of her fucking mind.
Yeah.
And for some reason wants to keep the elevator open. I don't get it. But I tell him that he needs to leave. He holds the elevator open and pulls out a knife and says, "She cut me with this." And I'm in my head, this happened all in a split second. I'm like, I don't give a fuck if she tried to cut you with it. You have it. You have it right now. So I pull the gun out at that point. Like within 21 feet, somebody can get to you with a knife and kill you. So I'm 5 feet away from the dude. He's in an elevator. So I pull the gun out and I'm like, go the fuck downstairs. And he backed away and the elevator closed. Now, if I didn't have that gun, I think he would have stood there and argued with me over it and possibly come out of the elevator and we both could have been fucked. Because there's three things that can happen in a knife fight, right? One, you're better than the other guy and he dies. Two, he's better than you and you die. Or three, you both suck and you both die.
Yeah.
So it's...
He stabs you, you get a control, you stab him, and then you both just bleed out right there.
Yeah, so you don't fuck around with knives. People think that knives are less deadly than guns. They're really, really not. And you got to take it just as serious as if that guy was holding a gun. So that's why I didn't play around and I drew the gun. I understand, especially in the state that we live in, that if I would have pulled the trigger there, even if he would have tried to attack me with the knife, I would have been fucked. But because you have to use equal force.
Yeah, and that's more. You basically should have had a knife on you and just fucking dueled it out in the hallway there,
right? Which
is terrible. But, again, that's the situation where both of you are just going to die.
Right. Now, after he goes downstairs, I take her back to her apartment and I ask her if she wants to call the police because I'm a third party in this. I'm not gonna call the police unless she necessarily wants. The situation was diffused. She didn't get hurt. That guy looked like he was a bum off the street anyway. And he was her Tinder date, by the way, and she was like 40-something years old. But she said she wanted to call the police. She's fucking out of her mind, so she can't talk. So I'm talking to the police, and they come and talk to me when they get there. They barely even bother to talk to her. And I was honest. I told them that I had a gun and that I presented it. And they asked to see it. And I was like, fuck, man, because it's got a threaded barrel. We live in California.
And that shit is illegal.
So I tell them where the gun is because I'm not going to go grab the gun with cops in my house.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, the gun's in my nightstand. Please go. You can go get it. I don't want to touch it while you're around. And they went and grabbed it, and they asked me, why I have it and all this, and I told them like, hey, I always want something to protect myself or protect somebody else. Look what just happened. I'm a certified marksmanship instructor. I am, and I know my way around a gun. I'm definitely not going to be the guy to pull the trigger when I don't need to, and I definitely know how to aim it. So when I told them that, they were like, okay, cool. They realized that I did know how to apply deadly force if necessary because I obviously didn't, and they didn't say anything. They didn't take my gun, and I think that this is not a rare circumstance of what happened because the majority of law-abiding gun owners, the vast majority,
very, very vast majority
of law-abiding gun owners respect their weapons, respect what those weapons can do, and they're very knowledgeable, and they don't have their weapons and guns to make themselves feel powerful. I think that's one of the big misconceptions about people who have guns. People who are anti-gun think that these people just have little dicks and want a gun around so that they feel powerful, and that's not it. Look at I'm 28 years old, and I have had several instances in my life where me having a gun has saved somebody. That right there speaks volumes.
Yeah.
In knowing how to apply the use of it to where no one even got hurt, no one got shot. It speaks a lot for law-abiding gun owners who know what they're doing.
Yeah, it literally took your situation from having the other guy having the upper hand momentarily to then giving you the upper hand in the situation. And then it diffused the situation because it was so much of a threat to him that he knew if he moved, he was going to lose his life now over it.
Right.
And so, bam, done, gone. But, like you said, in this fucking state, technically, you shouldn't even have had that. You should have walked into that situation without it.
Right. And this is not the only state, and by far not the worst state in terms of gun laws. I know that we're going to go into that a little bit here, but there is overwhelming evidence that states with strict gun control laws kind of have the opposite effect in a negative way.
Yep. Because criminals don't give a crap. They do not care what the law says they're supposed to do.
And the another misconception is people always think about it when a gun is drawn, both people have guns. In every single one of my situations, I was the only one with the gun. But life was still in danger in every single one of the situations.
Yeah.
The gun, I was always ready to pull the trigger if I needed to. But I did not pull that gun out thinking, okay, here we go, I'm pulling the trigger.
Yep. Just because it comes out doesn't mean you actually have to use it.
Right.
Usually just the sight of it is more than enough to scare your average person away from doing what they were doing.
Yes.
But like Terry said, we don't just want to, don't take our word for it of some of the myths and facts surrounding guns. We prefer to actually dive into the evidence.
Right.
So I'll give full credit. I'm going to talk about an article that Aaron Bander from the Daily Wire wrote, talking about facts on gun crime that show gun control does not work. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you talked about is there are places that are worse than we are, like, the good place of Washington, D.C., where they have a gun ban. All right, and what happened to the homicide rate after they did that? It got worse. In 1976, D.C. implemented a law that banned citizens from owning guns, as only police officers were allowed to carry firearms, which I really think, again, this is our personal opinions when we get into this. This isn't any opinion, we're not trying to represent anybody that we would say we work for or anything like that. These are our specific opinions.
Yep.
But I think this is what a lot of people really wish the country would be like, where just police officers. It's also the same people who cry that the police force is over-militarized.
Yeah.
You really can't have it both ways.
Right.
But the police officers are the only people who would be allowed to have guns. And those who already own guns were allowed to keep them only if they were disassembled or trigger-locked. According to a prosecutor, Jeffrey Shapiro, the results were not good. Annual homicides rose from 188 to 1976 to 364 in 1988, and then increased even further to 454 in 1933. The gun ban was struck down by the Supreme Court in Columbia versus Heller, and homicides have steadily declined since to 88 yearly murders in 2012.
Wow.
So, banning guns from every citizen does not work. There is your empirical evidence.
Right. And now, let me tell you exactly what the other side will say when they listen to this. Okay. There's going to be something about the words common sense gun laws. That those exact words will be said, and then I don't know exactly what will be said, but something along the lines of background checks will be said. And a great example of the ignorance of this is a very recent thing. We try not to get political here, but sometimes, especially with topics such as this, we have no choice but to point at certain politicians or people in politics that say stupid fucking things. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think, last week, Kamala Harris had it wasn't a press conference. It was
town hall.
Yeah,
she had a town hall in Des Moines, Iowa.
And she said, doesn't it just make sense for us to have background checks on everyone that buys a gun? And all I could think was, man, there's no way this person has ever purchased a gun.
No.
Because every single gun that I have bought from the same guy at the same shop. And they background check me to the full extent every single time. And then you say that, and then they're like, well, what about the gun show loophole? Well, I was with a very good friend of mine at a gun show while he purchased a gun. And you know what they did?
Background check.
They did a fucking background check, because a gun show is not a place that you just go, see a gun you like, hand the dude a couple bills, and walk out with the gun. It is the same as buying it in a gun shop.
Because most of those guys there are FFLs. They are required by law for every transaction they do to do a background check on you. And I think we might have bought some guns from the same spot. I think if I'm thinking of where you bought guns from.
Most likely.
All right. And I remember purchasing my first firearm from them, and I'm there with my wife and run the background check on me, right?
Yep.
And we're like, my wife's like, have you ever had like one come back? And it's no.
Yep.
And the guy looked at my wife and says, almost every day.
Yeah, I've asked that guy the same question. Yep.
And then he went on to say, sometimes it doesn't come back, and because for the most part they run you through a database, and for me, I've never really waited more than maybe 15 minutes for my background check to come back and be cleared. But he says sometimes further investigation required, takes a little while.
Yeah.
And he says, but every now and again, while it's running, all of a sudden, a state trooper comes over, drives up to the shop, and walks in the store. And you know what they're there for?
To arrest that guy.
To arrest the guy that you just typed in to get his background checked. They're like, oh, he's here now? Roger that. Do not finish the background check. Then they dispatch a state trooper to go pick him up.
Right.
That's how it works. Newsflash, America, that is how purchasing a gun works if you've never done it before.
Yeah. It is a system that works. And I know people are like, well, what about people with mental illnesses, all that? And who is to determine what? Okay, if I saw a therapist before, now can I not buy a gun?
Yeah. If you're taking antidepressants for just a little while,
right?
You are now excluded. If you want to make the case that people need to speak to their feelings and see somebody, but now you're going to put a cap that due to mental health, I cannot own a firearm, you're going to find a ton of men who are supposedly toxic masculine who are going to forego getting mental health help because they do not want to lose their firearms.
Now, here's a point with the mental health thing. We hold doctors to a very, very high status. Right, like a doctor says something, everybody likes to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And when a doctor deems somebody as having mental health issues, we take that as gospel. And if a doctor deems somebody with mental health issues and they are potentially violent, that will show up on a background check. That is not something that just gets tossed under the rug, right?
Yeah.
But we should not move it to people of all mental health cases, because then we run into...
Well, you're taking an antidepressant. We're worried that if you buy a gun, that it means because you're going to start the thing and blow your brains out.
Yeah, and like I've said before, I've been to counseling.
Hey, what about the married guy?
Yeah.
Does if one person in the house is taking medication or has a mental health problem, does it preclude everybody in the house now cannot buy a firearm?
Right.
Is the whole house now off the list? Can't buy one because you live with someone who could gain access to your firearm.
Yeah.
Starts down this slippery slope.
Yep. And then we talk about, okay, now let's talk about the assault weapon ban. Right? That's no one needs an assault weapon. And
no one needs a whiny bitch, yet you're still here.
Right, but let's look at do you have the statistics of how many murders are committed with an assault weapon versus how many are committed with a handgun?
Not off the top of my head, but I can tell you at least the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have specific numbers, but I can tell you far more guns are considered, are committed with a handgun, vice what they would define as the assault rifle, which usually they use the AR-15 as their definition.
Right, because it looks scary.
Far more crimes are committed by handguns. And you know the other one that they say that blows my mind? We should ban semi-automatic rifles.
Fully semi-automatic.
Or fully semi-automatic, or just any semi-automatic gun should be banned. You seriously have a problem.
Yeah.
You do not know how guns function. If that is what you're going for, or automatic weapons should be banned. Hey, guess what? Already are.
Yep.
You got to pay a lot of money in order to be able to have one.
So when fully semi-automatic weapons are banned, or let's say fully semi-automatic rifles.
I mean that's pretty much you're down to like a muzzleloader and a pump shotgun.
Yeah,
and a revolver.
I do love shotguns, but then what happens when the murder rate stays the same? Now it's like, okay, well, I guess we just got to ban handguns now.
I mean, that's still a semi-automatic weapon there.
Fully semi-automatic.
Fully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fires 900 rounds in half a second.
Yeah, I remember that video.
Yeah,
with the dude in Chicago
with a
ghost gun.
Yeah, with a 60 magazine clip.
Yeah. Thank you for making this. You've proven our point that you are a politician that doesn't know squat about guns.
Okay, we've rambled. Let's hit some quick stats.
Yeah, let's go for just a few more stats. He made 7. I'm only going to go through a couple more, but they're important ones, right? Vast majority of mass shootings, these are the things we're trying to get rid of in society, are the mass shootings, right? You know where they occur?
In the strict gun control areas.
Gun-free zones.
Yeah.
That since 1950, when they've been taking stats, nearly 99% of mass public shootings have occurred in gun-free zones. The terror attack in Orlando, Florida, and the shooting that murdered singer Christina Grimmie in June also took place in gun-free zones. The reason is obvious. Deranged murderers want to be in a position to murder as many people as possible so they can target areas where they're least likely to find resistance.
Here's a good one for you. It kind of backtracks into something that we talked about earlier. Approximately 200,000 women in the United States use guns to protect themselves against sexual crimes every single year. Well, how awesome is that? Because you know what? You shoot them right between the fucking eyes.
Yes. Let's see. 2 more.
Okay.
All right. The number of defensive gun uses are higher than the number of criminal firearms use. There was a range of 500,000 to over 3 million defensive gun uses in 2013, according to research from the Institute of Medicine and the National Research Council published by the CDC. That same year, there were 11,208 firearms homicides and 414,562 non-fatal illegal gun uses, according to the CDC and National Justice Institute. So anywhere from approximately 100,000 to about 2.9 million more defensive gun uses that year than there were of actual criminal usage of a gun.
Yep.
So ban guns, sure, but again, potentially almost I'm not a quick math major, but 70% of what you're trying to solve, you're going to take away the actual tool they used.
Yep.
To save themselves, save somebody else, to use that firearm in defense.
Yep.
And then the last one, it was not from that article from the Daily Wire, but another point that I remember reading this probably almost 2 years ago, and it blew my mind when I read this this fact.
Okay.
Right? About concealed handgun carriers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a lot of people out there, you alluded to it, when you talk about people who carry a gun with them, that they're just these power-hungry guys that, like Little Dick syndrome, carrying a gun so I can feel like a big badass.
Yeah.
And that, they're probably out there just, Yeah, they could potentially commit a crime that they're going to be able to. Now they can legally hide a gun.
Yeah.
They're going to go commit crime because now they can smuggle it in somewhere legally. Not the case. They did a study that concealed handgun permit holders are actually extremely law-abiding. How law-abiding, you ask? Well, when they conducted their study in Florida and Texas, permit holders are convicted of misdemeanors and felonies at 1/6 the rate that police officers are convicted. So your average police officer is 6 times more likely to commit a misdemeanor or a felony than a concealed handgun permit owner.
That's fucking insane.
And cops don't really commit that many crimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of social justice warriors out there that are going to tell me, oh, no, they don't. They're just a bunch of assholes and racists and all that. Statistics aren't on your side. Cops are not that. The cops are, if you sliced any segment of society and said who is the most law-abiding, it's law enforcement.
Yeah.
Are law-abiding citizens. And then you're going to say they're 6 times as likely to actually commit a crime than a concealed carry permit holder.
That's crazy.
It is. It just goes to show you that how serious people who are serious about their guns and their ability to protect themselves, how serious about every aspect of life they are.
Yeah.
Whether it's breaking laws or whatever they want, they take that shit 100% serious.
Oh yeah.
All right, hey, as we head out, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at the Official Man Cave Podcast, over on Twitter at the Man Cave 14, on Instagram at the Man Cave Podcast, and on YouTube. But if you want that full no safe space, no bullshit experience, check us out and subscribe to us over on Patreon for only $1. You're going to get entered to win that Beer of the Month club valued at $120.
Heck yeah.
That's a hell of a deal, man.
Yeah, and I know one of our patrons emailed me and said he got his koozies.
Yeah.
So the koozies, if you haven't got it already, it's in the mail. If you want one, it's real easy. Just go over to patreon.com/themancavepodcast.
Sign up. Support it.
Yeah, become an official alpha male. Get your man card. Get a koozie.
Yeah. You're only supporting this to keep going further because we have plans for the future. We're the only direction we're going is up.
Yeah.
I promise that. Only for $5 a month, you're not only going to get in to win the prizes, you'll get a man card like Terry, or excuse me, what was your name again this episode?
Armed and Dangerous.
Like Armed and Dangerous just talked about, the man card for all your beer opening needs. You'll get exclusive access to special podcast episodes like Ass, the After the Show. Like, if you haven't listened to Ass, right now I think we're like 15 episodes deep or so.
We've got a good amount of them.
Yeah, so literally, as soon as you sign up, you have access to 15 more episodes of hearing us talk about random shit that we want to talk about. Man shit, but other stuff. 15 more episodes.
And they're all 30 minutes long, just like this one. They're a little bit more laid back. We don't have a specific topic we really stick to. We just talk whatever's on our mind. And this Wednesday, when we release Ass, it's actually a triple threat. We're having an orgy.
It's a menage.
We're having an orgy. We're going to release 3 episodes of Ass on Wednesday.
The menage.
That's an hour and a half. An hour and a half you can listen to our ugly voices.
But yeah, you get exclusive access to tell us what you want us to talk about and give us feedback on topics from every podcast. And like we've said, we will even let you on the show. So, hey, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay with us. We'll see you next time here in the Man Cave.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Any real man would follow us on Patreon for exclusive content and prizes at patreon.com/themancavepodcast. The Man Cave. No safe spaces, no bullshit.